If you think ghosts and demons are the scariest things lurking in the dark, think again. Because the most terrifying monsters in this world, they don't wear sheets. They breathe the same air you do. They bleed, they walk, and they plan. This is the second part of a 100% true story, and it is proof that sometimes reality is far worse than any nightmare you could ever conjure up. When my mother, driven by nothing but raw maternal instinct, threw me out of that first-floor screen window into the dirt at 2 in the morning, she thought she was saving my life from an intruder. We had just witnessed a tall, faceless shadow step out of my empty bedroom, framing our doorway in the moonlight. Escaping through that window and screaming for help felt like a victory. But escaping the apartment didn't mean escaping the nightmare. In fact, the true horror was only just beginning. When the police arrived that night, the flashing blue and red sirens brought the entire neighborhood out onto their porches. My mother was hyperventilating on the grass, holding me so tightly against her chest that I could barely breathe. The officers rushed inside with their guns drawn, barking orders, fully expecting a confrontation. They expected to find a broken window, a forced lock, or a frantic criminal trapped inside the perimeter. Instead, they found dead silence. 20 minutes later, the lead detective walked out of the front door, holstering his weapon. He looked at my mother not with sympathy, but with profound exhaustion. He told her that every single window was locked securely from the inside. The heavy wooden front door was deadbolted, and the security chain was still fastened. There was absolutely no way anyone could have entered that apartment, and there was definitely no way anyone could have escaped after we jumped. The detective sighed, patted his notepad, and told her that she was a single mother going through a stressful separation, and that night, terrors were incredibly common. He essentially told her she was seeing things. They thought it was all an illusion created by the midnight shadows. But my mother knew what she saw. A mother does not throw her 5-year-old child through a window over a bad dream. But we had nowhere else to go. My mother couldn't afford a hotel, our family lived hours away, and the lease was signed. We had to move back into that exact same apartment the very next day. The atmosphere in that home had completely changed. The air felt heavy, cold, and suffocating. Every creak of the floorboards made our hearts skip a beat. Every rustle of the wind against the glass felt like a physical threat. My mother changed our entire routine. She bought heavy deadbolts, she barricaded the windows with wooden blocks, and we never, not for a single second, stepped foot back into my bedroom. The room where the man had stepped out of remained entirely dark, its door firmly shut. We huddled together in her bed every single night, keeping every single light in the bedroom turned on. But the most unsettling part of that week wasn't the silence. It was our cat. Our cat, who used to be playful and affectionate, became a ghost himself. He refused to eat. He wouldn't sleep on the bed with us anymore. Instead, he would sit in the exact center of the kitchen floor, his eyes locked onto a far corner of the room, his back arched, letting out a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the floorboards. My mother kept telling herself it was just residual stress from the night we jumped. She desperately needed to believe we were safe, and that denial lasted for exactly 7 days. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The sun was shining brightly outside, providing a false sense of security that only daytime can bring. My mother decided to deep clean the kitchen to occupy her mind and distract herself from the overwhelming anxiety that was slowly consuming her. She wiped down the counters, scrubbed the floors, and then her eyes fell upon a tiny, narrow utility closet in the corner of the kitchen, right next to the pantry. It housed the apartment's water heater. It was a space so small and cramped that we hadn't even opened it since the day we moved in. We just assumed it was empty, dusty, mechanical space. Thinking a good cleaning would clear the dust, my mother gripped the rusted brass handle, turned it, and pulled the door open. The smell hit her first. It wasn't the smell of dust, rust, or old pipes. It was the faint stale scent of cheap mint, mixed with the unmistakable, suffocating odor of unwashed human sweat. Her breath hitched. She reached inside and pulled the string of the single dim light bulb hanging from the ceiling. As the yellow light flickered on, my mother's knees turned to water. She staggered backward into the kitchen counter, a scream catching in her throat. There, sitting on the dusty floorboards right next to the humming water heater, was a makeshift nest. A dirty, dark blanket had been laid out neatly. Next to it sat a pair of heavy, black cloth grip gloves. But it was what lay beside the gloves that made the blood run entirely cold in her veins. There was a mountain of chewed-up gum wrappers. hundreds of them piled neatly in a corner. And right in the center of the blanket lay a small, battered spiral notebook. With trembling hands, my mother picked up the notebook and flipped it open. The sheer horror of our reality finally set in. The notebook was filled with frantic, tight, obsessive handwriting. It contained a highly detailed log of our lives. It had our names, the exact times my mother left for work, the exact times I came home from school, notes on what we wore, what we ate for dinner, and what time the television was turned off each night. But the most terrifying page was the very last one. It was a hand-drawn sketch of our bedroom layout, showing exactly where our bed sat in relation to the door. And written at the bottom of the page, circled in heavy black ink, were the words, "They sleep so soundly." The realization crashed down on her like a tidal wave. The police were wrong. My mother wasn't having a nightmare. That man hadn't broken into our apartment on the night of the escape. He didn't need to break in. He was already inside. He had been living in our walls, inside that tiny kitchen closet, for weeks. He knew our schedules. He watched us live our lives through the cracks in the doors. Every single night he would sit in the pitch-black closet, quietly chewing his mint gum so we wouldn't hear him, waiting patiently for the apartment to go dark. And once he knew we were fast asleep, he would turn the handle, step out into the kitchen, and walk into our bedrooms just to stand over us in the dark and watch us breathe. The only reason he was caught that night was because our cat had heard his footsteps, and my eyes happened to open at the exact right second to catch him before he reached the bed. My mother grabbed me, ran out of the house into the street, and called the police again. This time, when the detectives saw the closet, the blanket, the notebook, and the mountain of wrappers, their faces turned completely pale. They realized they had left a mother and a child alone in a house with a predator. They took the notebook for fingerprinting and DNA testing. They launched a full investigation into the previous tenants, the building maintenance crew, and the landlords. But the most chilling part of this entire story, they never caught him. The fingerprints didn't match anyone in the system. The DNA came back as a dead end. The notebook didn't have a name. To this day, we have absolutely no idea who that man was, how he got a key to our apartment, or what his ultimate plan was for us if I hadn't woken up that night. We moved out of that city the very next day, leaving almost all of our furniture behind. I am an adult now, but to this day, I can never sleep with my bedroom door open. And every single night before I turn off the lights, I check every single closet, every single cabinet, and every single corner of my house. Because sometimes the monsters aren't hiding under your bed. They are hiding behind the door, waiting for you to close your eyes.